Hi everyone, Mick from Expert Instructor Training here, and I'm just briefly going to talk to you about reference points and those little stickers that some instructors have in their cars. Personally myself, I don't have them, I've never had them, and I don't believe in them. And these are the reasons why. Those reference points, those stickers that we see down the side of the cars, in the rear windscreen, front windscreen, to me, they're there to help the learner pass the test. Now you can ask the instructor, or if you've got them yourself, you'll probably turn around and say, oh no, they're there to help the learner drive safely for life. So if they're there to help the learner drive safely for life, when the learner passes and gets their own car, are they going to put stickers in there? No. What they'll do, or what they may do, is they may think, oh, there's a sticker there and I've got to do this at this point and that at that point, and oh hang on, I'm nowhere near where I should be. Another thing that might happen is on the lessons, and especially on the test, they will be thinking more about the sticker than what's going on around them. So they may miss something. Also, and I'll give you an example of this later on, the stickers are your stickers. You've put them stickers there, so they're your reference points, not your learner's reference points. So similar to being in a different car, it's a different learner. That learner is taller, shorter, wider, thinner. We're all different, so them reference points are slightly different for everybody. But because we've got the reference points and we're just looking and working on the reference points, we don't know how to rectify it when it goes wrong. You may also find it takes quite a long time for these manoeuvres to be perfected because they're thinking too much about what to do at what point in the manoeuvre. Personally, as I said earlier, I don't use reference points. I prefer my learners to find their own natural reference points. They can have a go. They may find that I'm not quite in the bay, so I'm just going to turn a little bit later or a bit slower. But I'm going to look around and I'm going to see where I am rather than looking at the reference point. That way, if they're looking around, they'll see what's going on around them and they'll be safer. So I'm going to give you an example of a learner with a PDI, and I was sat in the car. I was in the back of the car, and this PDI was training a learner to do a reverse bay park. I may add at this point though that the PDI wasn't one of my PDIs. They'd come to me from somebody else, and this was the first time I'd sat in a lesson with a pupil driving. So we're in a car park, and this learner was really struggling to get it in the bay, to reverse into the bay. The instructor was instructing them, telling them do this and this, at that point there, that dot, blah blah blah, and they couldn't get it in. Eventually, the PDI turned around to me and said, "What is the learner doing wrong?" To which my reply was, "Nothing. The learner is doing exactly what you're saying, what you're telling them to do. They're turning at that point." A puzzled look came across the PDI's face, and they said, "So why isn't the car going into the bay?" I just turned around to them and said, "These dots that you've got on your car, where did you get them from? oh, my trainer has them and he told me I've got to have them. So I've put them in the same place as my trainer had them. Okay. What car did your trainer have? It turned out his trainer had a Ford Fiesta or Ford Focus. My son a Peugeot 208. Slightly different. Okay, a lot different. What the PDI had done was done exactly what his trainer told him to do. But he was in a different car. Certain reference points didn't work. The trainer then asked me then, so how did she get it in the bay? So well, let's try something. Let's forget about these reference points. Let's just look at the bay and let's see if we can get it in. The learner looked at the bay, started reversing, looking around, checking on the positioning. Lo and behold, she got the car in the bay on the first attempt. And that just shows how restrictive and how much more difficult the PDI was making that manoeuvre for that learner by having them reference points there. The reference points were totally useless. The reference points were from another car. Oh, and I forgot. At one point I asked the PDI, how do you reverse into a bay? Well, I just look at the bay and reverse it in. So why are you trying to teach a learner a different way to what you do it? Why don't you think about how you do something and let them try it the same? So that's my take on reference points. Me personally, I don't use them. I let them find their own way, make their own mistakes, rectify them. And the final thing, it's about getting the car from A to B. Doesn't matter how you get there, but as long as you can rectify a mistake, you master it. What I mean by that is, if you can't quite get it in the bay, but I know how to rectify it, then fine, you've done it. You don't have to get it in first time. Thank you very much for listening. Think about the reference points, whether you actually need them, or whether you can let your learner find their own reference points. Thanks a lot. Speak to you later. Bye bye.